Hello and welcome to the Christ and Culture webcast. I'm your host, Taylor DeSoto. Wanted to talk a little bit about language learning today, and you guys may or may not know if you know me, but I'm currently in my second year of learning Greek, and the first year I didn't really give it my all. I got really discouraged, was very easily pulled away from the task at hand. I started with Machen, his New Testament Greek for beginners. I played around with mounts a little bit, some other resources, and really didn't gain a lot of ground. I've got mounts as vocab cards as well. And I probably learned enough to kind of get by, learned how to use my Logos tools and that sort of thing. And this year I was really encouraged to actually learn the language and learn how to, read my Greek New Testament without any sort of um, internet tools or Logos tools or having a lexicon right next to me at all times. And so starting to figure out how to do that was really tough. And the sort of grammatical approach is good, and I think it's worked for a lot of people for the purpose that they've used it for, in the sense that most people that are utilizing the Greek language, the ancient Greek language, are pastors that are really trying to dig into how the grammatical structure of the Greek can pull out meaning from the text, or maybe clarify an issue in the text. But I think that is sort of a downgrade, and there's been a lot of conversation lately, specifically regarding, do modern seminarians and do modern Greek seminary teachers actually know Greek? And there was, there's a study floating around in which I think it was 27 Greek professors did really abysmally on a basic Greek test. And so it's causing people like me to really question the sort of methodology that's being taught in seminary, right? A lot of people have had experience with all sorts of textbooks in seminary, and at the end of it, they can do what they're taught to do. Don't get me wrong. I think that the method that they're teaching is good for what it is supposed to do. But what it's supposed to do is not actually to teach you how to read the Greek New Testament. And I'm sure there are students that have done this. There are pastors that have done this using this methodology. Don't mistake the general status of Greek language learning with the specific individual that's very, very determined to actually know the language. There are plenty of people out there like that. Don't mistake what I'm saying for being overly critical of people. But based on my experience with the grammatical approach, was essentially you learn about 500 to 1,000 vocab words, and then you learn how the Greek grammar works. And so that way, you are, as you go through your life, you never really forget those grammar rules, but you forget all your vocabulary. And so you're really kind of tied to a lexicon or a dictionary or some sort of tool to help you remember those hard words, the words that only occur once. Well, there's a lot of words that only occur once in the New Testament. And so in terms of that methodology, like I said, it allows you to analyze the Greek as if it's a Sudoku puzzle. But that's not the goal for most people. The goal is to actually read the words in Greek. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what I'm doing and what I'm doing as a student, being taught by someone who has been studying Greek and has been teaching Greek for a very long time. My teacher has been dealing with the Greek language for about a decade now. Has learned all ranges of Greek, everything from modern, Attic, Byzantine, I want to say Koine, but Koine Greek, and so we're taking a little bit of a different approach, and I just want to share what's been really successful for me. So I started out with just mounts, just doing 150 vocab words at a time, and this is I think really good. I think if no matter what method you take, you need to just be doing vocab cards every day, vocab cards every single day, and you should at least have 1,000 words. I mean, at least have 1,000 words in Greek, and that's the goal that I'm working to right now. And I would say I'm probably about, in the 3 months that I've really been taking on this new method, I'm getting close to that number. Hopefully, I'm doing vocab every day, I'm doing Athanase, upside down. Athanase, which is I believe Attic or Classical Greek, and this is kind of like Lingua Latina, which it teaches you how to read Greek as you're reading Greek. And so this is a methodology that's been employed historically and has been really successful. It forces you to speak the language too, because well, it doesn't force you, but you should be. And then still hitting Machen every now and then. This is actually the least amount of focus I am right now. So about an hour a week in Machen. And then this is the majority of my time. I'm putting in probably 20 hours a week right now in Greek minimum. And what I'm doing, what you're probably asking, why is he holding this journal up? So what this is just a blank journal by church Bible publishers. And in it, I am making my own interlinear. So on one page, I've got the Greek and English. And then on the other page, I've got room for vocab helps, verb charts, paradigms, like things like that, declensions. And so, for example, I have a couple of vocab helps over here, which helps me. So I have, for example, the word X, which I wrote Exodus out of. So things like that. Let's see. The word for qubit is pixine, which reminded me of pixel. So that was how I remembered that, because qubit's a unit of measure, a pixel's a unit of measure. So little things like that are helping me remember the language, but actually making an interlinear is like probably you're picking up like 20 words a day, 20 new words a day, and they're words that you're going to remember because you're writing them constantly. So that's the method I'm employing. It's a multitude of methods. So I'm creating an interlinear, so that's about 10 verses a day, and then I'm doing about 20 minutes in Machen. And then I'm doing some Athanase, and then doing vocab cards that I showed you, and then doing conversational Koine with my teacher, and that's kind of, it's a full-bodied effort. And then I'm listening then I just read it. So a lot of people think that just reading the Greek New Testament, even if you don't know the words, is useless. No, read the Greek New Testament and listen to it. So I've got an audio files for every single chapter of the Greek New Testament in modern pronunciation, because that's what I'm using. And there's different thoughts on pronunciation, but the reason that I'm going with modern is because no one has ever actually spoken Erasmian Greek. It's an academic pronunciation, which is great if you want to speak academic Greek. I want to be able to take my Greek and talk to a modern speaker too if the chance arises. So there's a dual purpose there. And obviously the vocab has kind of evolved from ancient Greek to modern, but you can have Duolingo, and that's what I plan to do a little bit later. So I read my Greek and listen to it, even if I don't understand every single word. Just listening to it and getting the pronunciation, and you'll start to hear phrases even, and you'll start to understand grouping and that sort of thing. So that's kind of my full, this is my kit right now for learning Greek, and I'm putting in as much time a day as I possibly can for about a year, and just to kind of see where I get. And I can tell you, doing this method for even a little while, I can flip to most verses and at least know the general idea of what's going on. If there's a weird word in the sentence, I just look up the definition of that word, and I understand what the sentence is doing, not by learning the grammar first, but actually just learning the vocabulary by transcribing it, by scribing it. So that's what I'm doing. That might receive a lot of critique. People are like, no, you have to stick to the old method. If it worked for you, then that's great. Stick to it. But I think that there's a lot of evidence, at least from a lot of polyglots that speak at conferences, and they have polyglot conferences, really speak very highly, quite highly, about interlinears, and they speak quite highly about a full-bodied effort of learning a language, which includes listening, writing, reading, speaking, vocab, grammar. You need to attack it all. You can't just approach it from a sort of monolithic grammatical approach and expect to actually know the whole language. But if that's not your goal, right? If your goal is to just learn the grammar of a language, then I think the seminary approach is really great. But it will ultimately leave you in a place where you're going to have a very crippled vocabulary, and you're going to be basically reliant upon tools to read your Bible in Greek. Well, that's been it for Christ and Culture. I'm Taylor DeSoto. May the Lord bless you and keep you, and we'll see you next time.